Are the Pittsburgh Steelers getting ready to claim and sign wide receiver Diontae Johnson off of waivers after being released by the Ravens? Well, a top insider and reporter has come out and said that the Ravens waited one extra day to release and waive Diontae Johnson so that the Steelers wouldn't sign him and claim him before Saturday's game against the Ravens. But first, before I get more into that, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news and updates. Also like this video. Now, let's get right back into it. So, as we all know, Diontae Johnson is a former Steeler. He was traded to the Carolina Panthers this offseason. In return, the Steelers got Diontae Jackson. Well, his tenure in Carolina was short, but it was worth it a little bit for the Carolina Panthers because they signed him to an extension. And also, when you look at the extension, they were able to get some kind of value out of it for Diontae Johnson because he was then traded to the Baltimore Ravens midseason before the trade deadline, and they were able to get a pick back. But the Ravens' tenure with Diontae Johnson didn't work out too good. Diontae Johnson just didn't see the field, the Ravens didn't play him, and then he was a little bit of a problem in the locker room and in the media because he wasn't getting playing time, he wasn't seeing the field, and then he was kind of benched in a week, and he refused to go on the playing field. He didn't want to play for the Ravens anymore, and then he was given some time off, and then for personal reasons this past week, he was ruled out of practice, and then a few days later, he was ended up waived and released from the team. So then, he is now a free agent, but he could still be claimed off of waivers by a different team. If he doesn't get claimed today, then he'll officially be a free agent, get assigned anywhere. And if the Ravens released him one day prior to the day that they released him, he would have been available to be signed before the Steelers matchup against the Ravens. But Ian Rapoport has come out and said that he believes the Ravens, they waited that one extra day to waive Diontae Johnson a day later so that the Steelers would not claim him before their matchup against the Ravens, and then he couldn't share any intel about the Ravens playbook or the Ravens scheme to the Steelers. So he believes that the Steelers would have claimed him, but the Ravens waited that one extra day, so now he could be claimed on Monday instead of Saturday this past week. And that little intel or report or whatever it was by Ian Rapoport, even sharing this knowledge about the claim off of waivers, is a bit interesting because Ian Rapoport is one, if not the biggest reporter / insider in the NFL. Him and Adam Schefter are the two biggest reporters, so him saying this, it really put some insight. Maybe the Steelers were gearing up and getting ready to claim receiver Diontae Johnson off of waivers. Here was Ian Rapoport's direct quote about the situation. The timing, of course, was interesting for the release, because had they released him a day earlier, maybe his old team, the Steelers, could have claimed him and then played him against the Ravens. They wanted to make sure that did not happen. End quote. So, the fact that Ian Rapoport is saying this, it could mean the Steelers are interested in signing and claiming receiver Diontae Johnson when he does become available now on Monday. So, will the Steelers do it? I'll get more into that if it could really help this team. But that would have been a very tight turnaround for Johnson to go from being claimed to playing one day later, even if it was going to be a limited role. It is a new offense for the Steelers since Diontae Johnson was here, a new offense coordinator and things like that. So will he get used to this kind of playbook in one day? Probably not. But could he share intel if he was claimed on Saturday? Yes, he could have. So I get where Ian Rapoport is coming from, and him having insider knowledge only gives the story more fuel to the flame, because I know many people don't like the way Diontae Johnson's tenure with the Steelers ended and the way he was talking about the Steelers in terms of being a distraction in the locker room and things like that, close to his kind of end tenure. But when you look at his playmaking ability, his way he's able to get open and things like that, and the fact that he could be another playmaker for the Steelers offense, it could really play a huge part in the Steelers wide receiver group, because the Steelers have been looking for a wide receiver, a top receiver, basically all offseason. They were looking at Brandon Ayuk, they were looking at Tyler Boyd when he was a free agent, they're looking at Courtland Sutton, but they were just never able to get a deal done. Even Devontae Adams when he became available in the trade market. So if the Steelers are able to turn Diontae Johnson into Diontae Jackson, but then a few months later or a year later, able to sign back the receiver that they got the cornerback for, that could be a really good turnaround for Omar Khan, because it's basically like they got Diontae Johnson for nothing. They lost Diontae Johnson for nothing because they got him right back. And can he help this team? Yes. Did his tenure end poorly with the Steelers? Yes. But is his market value good in terms of the deal that he's on? Yes. So the Steelers getting Diontae Johnson back, if they claim him off of waivers, or even if he goes unclaimed, if they sign him back as a free agent, it could really help this team. The Steelers still need that second wide receiver. George Pickens is now the main guy. Diontae Johnson was the main guy when he was here, but now that he was gone, him coming back, he'll know his role. He knows that he would be the number 2 or number 3 receiver on this team. So having Diontae Johnson back, I believe it could help, because it takes less of the pressure off of George Pickens. And George Pickens has been out for the last 3 weeks. And if he does get injured, who is the Steelers' wide receivers? At least you have Diontae Johnson, who knows his role and knows he can be a number 1 in any given offense, because he was for the Steelers for however many years that he was here prior to George Pickens. So Diontae Johnson, yes, he can be a locker room problem, but you have to think about it like this. The only time that he was a locker room problem with the Steelers was when he's playing with a bad quarterback. When you look when he was with Big Ben, he was the most quietest guy, most humble guy, and never was a problem in the locker room. The only time he became more vocal is when he had to become a leader, when he had to become more vocal because they had a rookie quarterback or a second-year quarterback in Kenny Pickett, or just quarterbacks that weren't good on the roster. And then even when he was vocal in Carolina, it's because he was with the bad quarterbacks and a younger quarterback, so he felt like he had to be the more of a voice with Bryce Young. And then the only time he was a problem with the Ravens was when he was just being benched for absolutely no reason. Why trade for a guy if you're just going to bench him? So he was really never a problem until just later on these past couple years. So the Steelers getting Diontae Johnson back with a veteran quarterback now in Russell Wilson, maybe he'll go back to being the more humble wide receiver, because now he knows what it feels like to be released, traded many times, and maybe he switches his whole attitude. Who knows? He has to become a better person in the locker room if he wants to stick around, and that's something he could see, and we all notice. So maybe he notices as well, and his just attitude changes overall. Obviously, guys deserve second chances, and Diontae Johnson getting back with the Steelers could be a really great story and a second chance. The Steelers need wide receivers. George Pickens, when he misses time, you see what the Steelers' offense is struggling. Calvin Austin has to be that number 1 receiver, but Diontae Johnson can be the number 1 if George Pickens is out. And then when George Pickens is here, Diontae Johnson can be his sidekick. We've seen how good the Steelers' offense was, or at least how dynamic it could be if another wide receiver is added to George Pickens. George Pickens getting double teamed, everything like that. That won't happen if you have one of the best route runners in the entire NFL in Diontae Johnson. So I'm out here right now making the case for Diontae Johnson to come in for the Steelers. Obviously, he might be in the Mike Williams situation if he does come in, where he's been on this team, but this is a whole new offense. He's going to have time to learn it. Will the Steelers trust him enough if he does get signed? Who knows? But the fact that Ian Rapoport even brought this up is the reason why I'm even talking about the situation and with the Steelers potentially signing Diontae Johnson or claim off of waivers. Do I believe it could be a good fit? Yes. The big thing with him, though, is the drop passes. I believe you could have those drop passes because that was a big story a few years ago. Many people talk about his drops, but he was one of the lowest drop receivers in his last year or last 2 seasons with the Steelers. So even though he does drop the ball, it's just a bigger story than it really is meant to be based off the statistics. So Diontae Johnson, I'm making the case for him to return to the Steelers. But obviously, there's a case against him coming back to the Steelers. When you look at how it ended and things like that, the way he talked about the team, the talk about the quarterback situation, maybe people don't want him back. Maybe Mike Tomlin does think he's more of a distraction, then it would help the team. So maybe he doesn't want 2 wide receivers who are considered divas, I guess, now in the NFL, in George Pickens and Diontae Johnson. So who knows? But that's kind of the case against him based off his whole attitude situation that's been going on. But can he help this team? Yes. Can he hurt this team? I don't believe so. I actually think Diontae Johnson has been a good and humble receiver until just the last couple seasons where he had to deal with really, really bad quarterbacks and being set up for failure. And I said this multiple times in the past. I believe Diontae Johnson was never given a full opportunity in this league. For example, Big Ben, he had him in his last season or last seasons after the elbow injury, and he was never the same guy. Then he had Kenny Pickett, terrible quarterback. Then he had Mitchell Trubisky, terrible quarterback. Mason Rudolph, solid kind of backup quarterback, but still not a good one. And then he had Bryce Young. Wasn't really too good. Then when he had veteran and Andy Dalton, he played better. Was getting more targets, more receptions, did really good. See, when he has this veteran and Andy Dalton, Big Ben, his numbers are better. So at least those are some solid quarterbacks, but they're never top-tier quarterbacks. Diontae Johnson was never given a top-tier quarterback, even though he was a top-tier route runner. So I believe he's been set up for failure in this league, and I can see why he's frustrated. But the Steelers claim off of waivers. Maybe this week it could go a long way for the Steelers season and down the road. So the Steelers may finally have their number 2 receiver if they decide to do so and claim him and sign him off of waivers. But anyway, this is all just rumors right now until it actually gets done. Who knows if the Steelers value or think of him the same way I'm thinking of him right now, or if they just want to move on and turn a new chapter and just get rid of him once and for all and not have him come back. So this is just being talked about because of Ian Rapoport brought it up, that the Ravens waited one extra day. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on that kind of story, that the Ravens actually did wait that one extra day to release him, so the Steelers couldn't sign him or claim him before Saturday, and now he could be claimed today. So let me hear your thoughts on the comments below if you want the Steelers to have him back, or do you believe they should just let him go for good and not have him return? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and also make sure you subscribe to this channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news, updates, highlights, analysis reports, everything surrounding and covering the Steelers. I cover it, even if it's rumors like this. So subscribe to this channel and turn notifications, and until the next video, I'll see you guys all later. I'm out. Peace.